What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be doing a clutch inspection on this 1992 XJ600 Seca II. Now, I have a noise coming from my clutch. I think it's coming from my clutch. Whenever I'm idling, it makes a juddering noise, like a really big thunk back and forth basically, and it only seems to do it when it's low in the RPM range, like idle, like the lowest the engine will go. So I have a feeling someone messed around and did something funny in this clutch or forgot a part. So I've got the Haynes manual today. I'm going to go over all the specs for like the friction plates, the steel plates, the torque specs, the springs, everything. You know we're going to cover it all. But first we got to take it apart. The manual says we're supposed to drain the oil, but I'm pretty sure we can get away with putting it on the side stand, leaning it to the left, and taking off the housing. So that's where we're going to start. Let's get into it. But you know what to do. Smash the like and subscribe button down below if you haven't already. It really helps me out. With that set aside, let's go. To get to the clutch behind the housing, you'll have to take off the perimeter bolts, which are 8 millimeters all along the outside here. You'll also have to get the cable disconnected from the pull arm. So I'm going to use a 12 mil to undo this nut here. It's already loose, I cracked it loose. Slide out the arm, and then I'm going to bend back this little sheet metal tab so I can slide out the end of the cable so I don't have to take apart the snap ring assembly here. Hopefully I can leave this little assembly here together. But if you do need to take this apart, you need some snap ring pliers. Take off the snap ring, slide out the arm, and to slide out the whole shaft, you have to undo this bolt right here. So, first dumb mistake was I thought I could just pull the housing right off. What you have to do is actually turn your arm counterclockwise and let it pull back, because it lines up with the threads on the pull arm here, and I was pulling it off and it was just bonking, like bonk bonk. It would only pull back like a centimeter, but it's because it was catching these teeth on the pull arm. So turn your arm counterclockwise. Now to take off the pressure plate, you have 5 bolts here retaining the springs that hold the pressure plate on. I mean, loosen them evenly. It's a 10 millimeter, just work in a star pattern. I've got one sus looking bolt here, so I'm gonna order something new to replace that. Something to keep track of on the pressure plate is this little dot right here aligned with this hole. This pressure plate in theory only goes on one way, and it lines up with this hole right here, so with this stud which threads into this hole. So that's the way it goes on. Keep that in mind when you're putting it back together. Now, time to pull out the friction discs, check them for thickness, check them for scoring, and it looks like someone's been in here before because these bent over oh god, that's not supposed to be loose! Yikes. Clutch entirely off. You can see the guts of the motor, and it looks pretty clean in here. No big issues. I only think we're missing one part, and I think it's this thing. 25. Thrust plate. Unless this is it. But it wasn't in that spot though. It was in front of this. In front of 24. The clutch boss. So I'm gonna look this up on the internet and see if I can find that part and what it looks like in person. Alright, so after doing some digging, I found out this is the thrust washer. Apparently it's the teeth are chamfered on one side, so you have to make that face out, so I'll have a look at that in a sec. But it looks nothing like this in the Haynes manual. But when I Google the part number for this that I can find on partsfish.com, this is exactly what it looks like. But that's good, but it wasn't the wrong spot in my clutch. It's supposed to be behind this part and in front of this outer part. So it was over here. That's no good. Let's fix that. One problem is that I don't have the tool to hold my clutch housing or clutch boss tight so I can put on this nut, so I might just resort to the Ugga machine. For this bad boy, which is the clutch boss nut, is 50 foot-pounds. I might just have to resort to the Ugga machine. Before I continue putting parts back in, I'm gonna wash the clutch boss because it is filthy with dirt and stuff on the inside. It's gross. So I'm gonna clean that up with some parts cleaner and get it ready. Okay, so I got the clutch boss nut tight, but not the right way. I don't have the tool. I could use some metal like this, cut it, fold it, hold the prongs, tighten it. That's what you're supposed to do because it just spins right now, and how do you tighten a nut on something that already spins? Well, I used my impact driver, but that doesn't give you a specific torque reading, so it's not ideal. But I tried a bunch of things. I tried shoving this piece of metal in here and then putting a screwdriver in here to try and hold it, and I still couldn't get enough friction on it. Yeah, I'd recommend you go buy the tool. Apparently you can pick it up online for about $16. It's not the end of the world. Definitely worth getting, but don't be like me. All right, moving forward. Now we're gonna put the friction and steels back in, and then the pressure plate, this thing, and we'll go over the springs. But first we gotta measure the friction discs before we put them back in to make sure they're okay. Alright, so these friction plates are supposed to be between 2.9 and 3.1 millimeters with a minimum thickness of 2.7. The steel disc that's stuck to my thing right here. The steel plate thickness is supposed to be between 1.5 and 1.7. The warpage limit on this is 0.006 of an inch or 0.15 millimeters. The spring free length should be 42.8 millimeters or 41.8 millimeters at a minimum. So I don't have my vernier caliper to measure these things with me today, so I'm going to put it back in and assume all is good. I'd recommend you measure if you're going to go to the lengths to take this all apart. Torque spec for these pressure plate bolts is 70 inch-pounds or 5.8 foot-pounds. Now I'm putting the cover back on. You want to make sure your gasket is nice and intact, unlike mine. And then, so you got to make sure your pivot arm with the teeth is pointing to the left like mine is here, so that your release pivot arm can come down here and engage with these teeth. Other than that, just be careful when you put it on that you don't bump the gasket out of the way. It's held in place by dowels like that one there, and it should go on smoothly. You may have to, just like we did to take off the cover, you had to rotate the shaft to let it come off the threads here or off these teeth. You'll have to probably rotate the shaft in to make the whole cover suck into the clutch. These clutch cover bolts around the perimeter of the housing here are torqued to 87 inch-pounds. That's a wrap on inspecting and fixing the clutch on this 1992 Yamaha XJ600 Seca II. If this video helped you out, please smash the like and subscribe button down below. It really helps me out. If you have any questions about this job or things you've run into, drop them in a comment down below. I do my best to answer all the questions. Thanks for watching, everybody, and as always, have a good day.